Welcome to Cheating Tales Diary. Before we dive into today's story, we have a humble request. Please consider subscribing to this new channel. Help us hit our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Your support will motivate us to keep bringing you more exclusive original cheating wife stories. And now, let's get started with today's story. Howard Anderson's mornings were always the same. So measured, so predictable, that if an outsider watched even a single day of his life, they'd be convinced this man was either perfectly content or entirely resistant to change. There was no alarm clock set for 6 a.m. because Howard didn't need one. Every day, at exactly 5:55 a.m., his eyes would open, as if his body itself was a slave to time. He would rise slowly, roll to one side and bend his knees, spending a few moments with his eyes closed, just feeling the ceiling, like he was silently repeating an oath before beginning the day. Then he would sit on the edge of the bed, slip on his slippers, and move toward the kitchen without making a sound. The coffee maker in the kitchen was already set on a timer. The soft drip-drip sound from his drip silence machine was Howard's first music of the morning. He would pour black coffee into his mug, add exactly 2 grains of sugar, no more, no less, and then pull his old red armchair near the window overlooking the backyard. Outside, the sun hadn't fully risen, but the sky was turning a faint blue. Some lights glowed dimly in neighboring houses. A delivery van would drive by, tossing newspapers, and from the shadow in the lawn, Diesel, his pet dog, would slowly wake and settle near Howard's feet. This time of morning, these moments, were the truest part of Howard's life. No talking, no complaints, no performance. Just peace, a life ticking in rhythm. But lately, Howard had started to feel something different. For several weeks now, Donna had been waking up late. Sometimes, when he made his second cup of coffee around 7, she still hadn't come out of bed. And if she did, there was no sleepy affection in her eyes like before. Now she came down with messy hair, tied quickly into a loose bun, and a face that looked tired, but in a strange way, refreshed, as if she hadn't just returned from rest, but from a high. Howard had noticed she was spending more time on her phone. She would laugh, not in the way someone laughs at their spouse's joke, but like a teenager giggling at a new crush. Sometimes, while Howard read the market watch during breakfast, Donna would sit next to him with her headphones on, smiling at her phone. She used to share, "Look at this funny meme." But now she just watched and tucked her phone away, still smiling. Howard had wanted to ask many times, but each time, he held his tongue. Maybe he was afraid, or maybe he already knew. No answer would satisfy him. One Sunday morning, after taking out the trash, Howard walked back inside and saw Donna looking at something on her laptop. She quickly closed the screen, as if a guilty person had been caught red-handed. Howard didn't say a word. He placed his coffee mug in the sink and stepped out into the lawn. But something had changed inside him. Donna's boutique was doing very well online these days. Orders came in, she packed them, went to the post office, promoted on social media. Howard should have been proud, but he wasn't. He felt like just a name in Donna's life, not a partner or a teammate. He was now more like a stranger renting space in their shared home. One evening, while Donna was on a video call, Howard accidentally walked into the room. Donna ended the call immediately. For a brief second, Howard saw a man's face on the screen, someone he didn't recognize. "Who was that?" he asked. "A client," Donna said, avoiding eye contact. "A video call with a client?" "Yeah, it was about a custom dress order." Howard nodded and walked out without another word. That night, he reactivated an old cell phone. He pulled out a notebook, and on the first page, he wrote, "Observation. Change in tone. Call logs needed." Howard Anderson was no longer living in peace. He was performing peace. For the next several days, he kept the same calm expression. He still woke up on time, made his coffee, read the paper. But behind his eyes, there was a fatigue and a sharpness. He started watching Donna's every move. When she left the house, when she came back, how long she spent on calls. Everything was getting logged into a mental pattern. He tracked the time she claimed to go to the post office. One day, he went there himself. Donna never showed up. He installed a micro camera inside Diesel's dog collar, so every time Donna took him out for a walk, whatever happened in the house would be recorded. This wasn't difficult for Howard. He worked at the DMV, but his background was in data analytics. He was trained to collect information, analyze patterns, and decode behavioral signatures. Now he was trying to track the patterns of his own wife. Donna had no idea that Howard was now trying to read the meaning behind every one of her laughs. He wanted to know how much truth was buried in her silence, and how calculated her lies could be. One night, Howard asked himself, "Am I going crazy?" But then he opened his notebook and read the entries he'd made over the past 2 weeks. Each page was detailed: date, time, event, reaction, as if he were preparing a police case file. That's when he decided, "I won't say anything. I'll just watch. And when the time comes, I won't even speak. The world will understand on its own." He closed the diary and turned to a fresh page. On top, he wrote, Phase 2. Quiet Confirmation. This wasn't just a husband's diary. It was the silent war of a man, where there was no sound, but every word echoed. There was something different now in Donna's eyes, a certain sparkle that Howard kept trying to dismiss. But even his silence had started betraying him. Every relationship has its rituals. The morning smile, sharing tea in the evening, pulling the blanket over each other at night without saying a word. Howard and Donna had once had all of this. But now, every little thing Howard considered normal was slowly fading into fog. His routine hadn't changed. Up at 5:55 a.m., brew the coffee, read the paper. But now, when he sat in his old backyard armchair, Diesel no longer came to sit beside him. Maybe he spent more time in Donna's room now. Or maybe animals just sense what people don't until it's too late. Donna's behavior was no longer different. It had become a pattern. Every Wednesday and Friday, she went across town for what she called special deliveries for her boutique. Once, Howard casually asked, "Some important clients over there?" Donna replied, "Yeah, repeat customers. Loyalty matters, you know?" It sounded normal, but when she returned from those deliveries, her cheeks had a pink flush, her hair was slightly damp, and there was a scent about her. Something that didn't belong to routine. Howard noted, left at 11:40 a.m., returned at 3:26 p.m. Distance, only 14 miles. Time taken, 3 hours, 46 minutes. He told himself, either it's Los Angeles traffic or something seriously off. He recorded it in his phone's notes app. Howard had now become a careful observer. He saw everything, but never reacted. One time, Donna was on the phone. Howard walked into the room unexpectedly. "Oh, I can't talk right now," she said quickly and ended the call. Howard smiled. "New client?" Donna picked up her tea. "No one important." "Then why were you laughing so much?" "Just joking around." "Joking? With whom?" "Howard. Why do you always interrogate me? I have a personal life too." It was the first time she had used the phrase personal life. Howard fell silent. He didn't say anything, but his throat had gone dry. That night, he wrote in his diary, 10:07 p.m., phone call. She said it was personal life. First time she's used that phrasing, noted. Those words didn't just touch his heart. They sank into his bones. One morning, Howard left the DMV a little early and went to a nearby cafe. Sitting quietly, he watched. Donna, seated at a table in that very cafe. Across from her sat a man, slightly younger, neatly trimmed beard, and a designer watch on his wrist. They were both smiling. Howard didn't say a word. He stood up and walked out. There was no doubt, no hard evidence. But the question was no longer about suspicion. It was about documentation now. He wrote in his diary, 12:13 p.m. Cafe on Fifth Avenue. Subject meeting unknown male. Body language, casual intimacy, confirmed pattern of behavior. He used the word subject because now he was viewing his own wife as a research subject. That night, when Donna came home, Howard was watching TV. "Anything new?" she asked. "Nothing," Howard replied. "Just the usual end-of-day fatigue." "I thought you left work early today?" "Yeah, had a bit of a headache." "Then why didn't you rest?" Howard looked at her. "Do you want me to just rest all the time?" Donna didn't have an answer. She walked into the kitchen. Howard thought to himself, maybe she doesn't realize yet that I'm not the same man who always stayed silent. That night, Howard wrote a single line in his notebook. Stage 3 begins. Trust officially expired. He was no longer just a spectator. He had become a strategist. There was nothing special about that morning at the DMV. The same paperwork, the same long lines, and the same quiet Howard Anderson fixing system errors without a sound. But that day, when a scheduled task got canceled around noon, Howard felt no reason to stay. He thought, why not just head home? Unannounced. As he drove, there wasn't any particular suspicion on his mind. Just a pull. A silent tug, like some inner voice whispering, "Go see. Don't wait any longer." When Howard reached home, it was around 1:25 p.m. The sun was directly overhead, but the house windows were closed, curtains drawn. A stillness hung in the air, like it was trying to hide something. He parked and walked to the door. It was unlocked, which was unusual. Donna always kept the alarm on. As soon as he stepped in, he caught a faint scent, familiar but oddly out of place. There was no laundry running, no food cooking. So, where was that perfume smell coming from? He walked straight into the living room. Everything looked normal. Cushions in place, TV off, coffee mug in the sink. But as he passed through the room and began climbing the stairs, he heard something. A light giggle, like someone talking on a call. He paused. The sound was coming from the upstairs bedroom. Howard glanced at his phone. 1:29 p.m. He opened the door slowly. No one was there, but Donna's phone was on the nightstand. Screen lit up with an ongoing call. Caleb. Work. 16 minutes and 2 seconds. Caleb? Who's Caleb? He picked up the phone and saw a long text thread. Messages like, "Can't wait to see you," and "You're my escape." The call was still connected, but Donna had probably muted her mic and stepped into the bathroom. Howard put the phone down. He didn't say a word. He just walked downstairs, sat in the kitchen, and started making tea. As if nothing had happened. A few minutes later, Donna came down, slightly flustered. "Howard, you're home early?" "Yeah," Howard replied. "Work was light today." "You could have told me. I would have cooked something." "No worries. I made tea." Donna hesitated, then said, "I was on an important call. Just now." "Of course," Howard cut in. "You were talking to Caleb, right?" Donna froze. "I didn't steal your phone. I just saw it. It was still on. Don't worry." She had nothing to say. Howard added, "I don't want to know who Caleb is. I don't even care how long you've been talking. I'm just observing now, seeing how much is really left between us." There was a hint of fear in Donna's eyes. But it wasn't fear of rage or revenge. It was fear of the silence echoing inside Howard. "Howard, it's not what you think." "Donna," he said quietly, "I've stopped thinking. Now I just watch and take notes." He lifted the tea tray and slowly walked out of the room. That day, Howard confronted her for the first time. No yelling, no questions. He had reached that turning point where silence had become his weapon. That night, he wrote just 3 words in his diary. Observed. Confirmed. Cold Howard had turned cold from the inside. No more expectations. No more accusations. He was preparing for something new now. In Howard Anderson's life, silence had replaced words. But it wasn't an empty silence. It was a process, a journey. Every emotion he once merely felt was now becoming documented. Not like a jealous lover, not like a spy, but like a methodical, quiet, and disciplined worker. Just like he reviewed hundreds of documents at the DMV, Howard was now preparing the paperwork of his own life. He pulled out a thick blue notebook, the one that had been buried in the back of a closet for years. On the first page, he wrote, March 16th time, logged 6:42 p.m. observation. Donna received 3 back-to-back messages, smiled, deleted immediately. Phone was face down the whole dinner, no eye contact, repeatedly checked hallway window. Then he created a column. Caleb? And below it, he wrote, Who is Caleb? Just texts or a physical relationship too? When did it first start? Does Donna realize I know? Donna had no idea that Howard was no longer just her husband. He had become the record keeper of her every move. Over the next few weeks, Howard changed his morning routine. Along with the newspaper, he started reviewing Donna's phone bills, bank statements, and social media logs. He didn't steal any passwords. He used their shared access. He knew Donna wasn't tech-savvy. She'd never enabled 2-step verification on her Gmail. Cloud backup was on. Photos she deleted were still saved on Google Photos. March 17th time logged, 11:09 a.m. Observation Gmail login successful. Chat logs with Caleb work go back 6 months. Repeated mentions of meeting at the Yard Cafe. Pic from Valentine's Day, holding hands. Geotag, the Yard, 4:14 p.m. Status, confirmed affair. Pattern equals Tuesdays, Thursdays, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Howard had become a man solving a puzzle, not with love, but with cold clarity. One day he drove to the Yard Cafe, chose a corner table, ordered black coffee, placed a discreet camera under the table, and waited. 4:02 p.m. Donna arrived. 4:06 p.m. Caleb walked in. They shook hands, hugged. Saturday. Howard didn't take a single photo. He didn't need to. He was recording everything with his eyes. March 18th. Observation. Physical meeting confirmed. Caleb equals gym trainer, approximately 32 to 33 years. Black SUV license plate noted. Howard now began a new notebook. Phase 2. Digital Trail. In it, he traced Caleb's car registration, using discreet DMV access through his contacts, not breaking the law, just pulling public data. Caleb's full name. Caleb Monroe current address, Benton Grove Apartments. Emergency contact, Julie Monroe, ex-wife. A restraining order filed 2 years ago. Howard added a note. History of aggression. Evidence of instability. Could be used. This wasn't just a husband's journey anymore. It had become an operation. In this phase, Howard added another layer using tech, a GPS tracker. He ordered a discreet magnetic tracker from Amazon and, one night, attached it under Donna's car. Now every detail of her location, speed, and stops came to his phone in real time. March 23rd. Observation. Donna's car parked 2 hours at Caleb's apartment. No deviation. Time logged. 3:06 p.m. to 5:12 p.m. Howard's diary no longer contained feelings. It contained facts. On the first page of that diary, he wrote a single line. I no longer fear the truth. I only wish that when it arrives, my soul is calm. Howard had now started a third notebook. Phase 3. Preparation. In it, he wrote everything he needed to use in the future. List of divorce attorneys, bank assets that could be legally contested, records that would be admissible in court. What kind of video clips and logs would be considered valid evidence? He now viewed his marriage as a legal war, one in which he wouldn't hurt anyone, but no one would ever humiliate him again. He still spoke to Donna the same way. "Good morning. Is dinner ready? Need anything?" But behind every word was a frozen silence. Donna sensed something had changed, but didn't know what. Sometimes she would look at Howard, sitting with his coffee by the window like the sky before a storm. But she never asked. Maybe she was afraid that if she did, she wouldn't survive the answer. And Howard? He was simply waiting for that moment, not for a confrontation, but for an execution. Howard Anderson now knew this wasn't paranoia. It wasn't some baseless suspicion. It was a web spun right in front of his eyes, and now it had fully revealed itself. And yet, Howard hadn't confronted anyone. He didn't destroy anything. He hadn't made a single call or sent an angry message. No, he now had documented answers to every question, but he kept every question locked inside, in a room within himself where emotions screamed, but the sound never escaped. This chapter begins on the day Howard left the DMV office early, not for any urgent errand, but to see himself in a new light. He drove straight to the place he'd learned the most about Donna and Caleb, the Yard Cafe. This time, he didn't go alone. He brought in an old friend, Robert, a forensic photo analyst, who helped him install a discreet surveillance camera. This wasn't just any footage. It was time-stamped and metadata coded, logged in a format admissible in court. He stayed quiet for weeks. The camera rolled, the logs piled up, and then, one evening, 7:43 p.m., a folder landed in his hands. Inside the folder, a video of Donna and Caleb behind the cafe, sitting in a car, kissing. On Donna's hand, the diamond ring she once begged Howard for on their anniversary. The same ring Howard had said, "Not now, money's tight." And then, an audio clip of their conversation. "Caleb, he still doesn't know? You think he ever will?" Donna, laughing. "Please. Howard's practically furniture now. He doesn't see anything." Howard didn't play that recording over and over. Once was enough. He sat on a bench, behind the DMV in an empty night lot, the same place employees usually take breaks during graveyard shifts. In his hand was only his phone. In his ears, that line echoed. "Howard's practically furniture now." Sitting right there, he opened his third notebook. Preparation phase. He picked up his pen and wrote, Action Item 1. Secure personal financial accounts. Remove shared authorizations. Action Item 2. Call Janet Whitman, divorce attorney. Begin inquiry. Action Item 3. Back up all surveillance. Keep copy in offsite cloud. Action Item 4. Schedule health checkup. File emotional abuse documentation. At the bottom of the page, he added one more line. Justice is a process, not an emotion. Now Howard moved with deliberate precision. One evening, when Donna came home late from her boutique, Howard had dinner ready, her favorite pasta from years ago. He lit candles, opened a bottle of red wine. Donna blinked, surprised. "What's the occasion?" Howard smiled. "Just thought I'd remind you of the old days." Donna laughed. "You still think we're the same?" Howard took a slow sip of wine. "Number I think now. We're finally real." That night, Donna saw something strange in Howard's eyes, a depth that looked like it was reading her far beneath the surface. She felt a flicker of fear but brushed it off. "Shut up, Donna. He's still that boring man." What she didn't know was that the boring man had already reached the final stage of a meticulously calculated revenge plan. The next day, Howard made his most precise move. He contacted Caleb's ex-wife, Julie Monroe. Using his DMV network and quiet help from a law firm, he convinced her to meet at a neutral location. Before agreeing, Julie had asked, "Are you going to hurt him?" Howard simply replied, I just want the truth. And I want to make sure no one else gets hurt. Julie showed up. She brought restraining orders, Caleb's rage-filled texts, screenshots of his social media behavior, and even a buried police report. Julie said, "That man's a manipulative parasite, and if your wife's with him, she's either foolish or trapped." Howard replied, "She's neither. She's aware," which makes it worse. After that meeting, Howard now held more than just emotional evidence. He held legal and social leverage. Caleb was no longer seen as just a trainer. His image was shifting toward something far more dangerous. And Donna? She was falling right alongside him, risking her financial, social, and marital life for this man. On the last page of his notebook, Howard wrote, "There are no innocents left in this story. There are only characters now, and a climax that will rip every mask off." This chapter ends on a cold, silent night. Howard sat by the window, that same notebook in his hands. Each page, each date, each word. Now a piece of sworn testimony. He stared out at the city lights, the distant hum of cars, and felt the silence that had stopped being peaceful and become powerful. Howard Anderson was no longer just a betrayed husband. He was the author of his own story now. And in the next chapter, the rules would be his. Mornings in the city still moved the same, rushed, noisy, urgent. But Howard's mornings had taken on a new meaning. The same coffee, the same toast, the same newspaper. But now they weren't routines. They were armor, a calm shield for a mind sharpening its strategy. The man who once took everything at face value now read between every line. He could spot sarcasm behind a smile, a motive behind a sentence. He understood it all. The only difference was, he still said nothing. But his silence was no longer weakness. He now saw everything around him as a theater, one where he was both the actor and the director. Donna remained busy in her own world, but she couldn't see how much Howard had changed. She still spent hours on the phone with Caleb, closed deals with boutique suppliers, and went out late at night with flimsy excuses of meetings. But Howard was no longer part of that world, at least not visibly. On the inside, he was recording everything, understanding everything, and slowly building a new version of himself, for his mission, for his future. Howard started changing his wardrobe. Gone were the same old gray shirts. He now wore tailored suits, navy blue, charcoal gray, and sometimes even black on black. After his shifts at the DMV, he enrolled in night classes at the local university: business law, public finance, and a particular elective: digital privacy and surveillance. He wanted knowledge. He wanted tools. He was preparing on every front. This chapter highlights both Howard's external transformation and his internal evolution. He started attending social gatherings, something he'd once avoided entirely. One evening, he showed up at a gala hosted by the local Chamber of Commerce. There, he met Cynthia Bell, senior journalist and editor for Regional Ethics magazine. Cynthia smiled and said, "You look like someone who listens more than he speaks." Howard returned the smile. "And that's exactly why I know what to say." Howard was now tying himself to new names, new circles. He created a discreet alias, Howard Dane, and under that name, he built a private online network. On LinkedIn, he listed himself as a public accountability consultant. No one suspected a thing. And Donna? She still believed Howard was the same DMV guy whose life revolved around ID cards and license renewals. But what she didn't know was that Howard had already filed an ethics complaint against Caleb's former employers. She didn't know that Caleb's gym license was now under official review, triggered by documents Howard had carefully prepared. She had no idea that Howard had anonymously submitted a formal tip stating Caleb was involved in an unethical relationship with a married woman. And all of this was being done legally, step by step, By the book. Howard had now titled his journal, Phase 4, Operational Silence. He gained remote access to Caleb's gym's CCTV system, purchased quietly through a whistleblower. He began reviewing Donna's boutique rent payments and tax filings, and every evening he started taking slow walks through his neighborhood, with the calm posture of a retired man enjoying his evening stroll. But every step was part of a plan. One afternoon, Cynthia Bell invited him to lunch. As she picked at her salad, she looked at him and asked, "Are you really who you say you are?" Howard replied, "Depends who you're asking for. My wife thinks I'm harmless. My town thinks I'm invisible. And the truth? The truth thinks I'm long overdue." Cynthia stayed quiet for a moment, then said, "You should write. You've got a voice the world should hear." For the first time, Howard wondered, maybe this story could find its words. But not yet. For now, his face alone was about to become a story. That night, Howard stood by the kitchen window, looking out at the backyard, at the same swing where Donna used to sit and whisper into her phone with Caleb. Now there was nothing, just cold wind and a faint whisper of its own. Your turn. Howard opened his journal and wrote, "Silence is power, and the best revenge begins without a sound." It was just another morning in the city. But for Howard Anderson, it wasn't morning. It was the next phase of an operation. He was no longer just a betrayed husband. He had become someone who burned his emotions like fire and forged a war plan in the heat. Now it was time to execute. Howard never announced his revenge. He didn't scream. He didn't threaten. He simply began to remove the things Donna once thought were permanent: security, reputation, image. Donna continued to live her life as usual, or at least tried to. But the ground beneath her had begun to quietly shift. The first strike hit Caleb's career. Howard sent an anonymous email containing photos of illegal steroids and unregistered supplements stored inside Caleb's gym. Photos taken from a box in the staff closet, captured by a camera Howard had installed under the guise of a maintenance technician. Within days, the local health department raided the gym. Donna chalked it up to bad luck. But Howard knew it was just his first pawn, and it had already fallen. The second strike landed on Donna's boutique. During his time at the DMV, Howard had studied local tax codes, licensing clauses, and occupancy laws with great precision. He knew Donna had made renovations to her commercial property without proper zoning clearance. He filed a complaint with the zoning board under the name A Concerned Neighbor. Within a week, Donna received a violation notice, a $5,000 fine, and a 7-day compliance order. She turned to Caleb for help. But now, Caleb was tangled in his own legal mess. Howard didn't confront anyone directly. He simply had a forensic accountant quietly review Donna's personal bank account. His goal? To prove that several boutique expenses were being covered by Caleb, an ethically questionable move. He forwarded the documents to Cynthia Bell as an exclusive investigative lead. 3 weeks later, Cynthia published an article, "Small Town Boutique or Love-Funded Liability." The article didn't directly name Caleb and Donna, but the hints were unmistakable. It was enough. The town started whispering. Howard made his third move, a hit to Donna's social image. He contacted an old friend, now a senior editor, and asked for a favor. That friend's wife had once called Donna cheaply dressed at a charity event. Howard remembered. His friend started a subtle social media thread titled, "Local Entrepreneurs Who Stretch the Law." Donna was listed third. It included the zoning violation, the tax penalty, and a blurry photo of Donna and Caleb sitting together at a wine bar. Now the rumors weren't hidden. Gossip circles were on fire. Donna started to sense something was off. She called Caleb. "Did you tell anyone?" Caleb. "Tell what?" "I haven't done anything. I've got my own problems. You know that." Donna. Why is everything falling apart around me all at once? Caleb. Maybe. It's karma? Donna went quiet. Now Howard played another card from his deck. The legal rights move. He had his lawyer, Kellen Graves, check the status of every asset linked to Donna. The boutique lease, the co-ownership of the house, the insurance policies. There was nothing solid in her name, because Howard had gradually transferred everything into shell companies. When Donna inquired about a loan at the bank, she found out her credit score had now dropped into the high-risk category. A credit card company she had been using for years had blacklisted her. The last 3 transactions were flagged as disputed vendor, courtesy of an anonymous complaint. Now Howard needed just one thing: confirmation of emotional collapse. One night when Donna came home, tired, with a drained face, Howard was sitting at the table, like always. He had made tea and set a cup for her, too. Donna didn't say a word. Howard smiled and asked, "How was your day?" Donna broke down. She said, "Everything is going wrong. I don't understand why. I'm losing everything. Something's happening, something big." Howard looked at her gently. A long silence followed. Then he said softly, "Sometimes what we plant takes time to grow, but it always does." Donna stared into his eyes, but she couldn't see the man who used to make chickpea pancakes for her. Now there was a mirror, one that reflected her true face back at her. Howard wrote in his journal, Phase 5, complete. Subject is destabilized. Social, emotional, legal dismantling successful. Now preparing for public phase. His revenge was now entering the final stage. But he remained quiet. Because Howard knew, the most powerful blow is the one delivered in front of everyone. Without blood, without noise. Just the echo of silence. Cold winds still blew through the city streets, but that evening, the air carried something else. Tension, anticipation. The city's successful business leaders, public officials, social figures, and media reporters had gathered at the town hall for the annual Community Excellence Awards. It was an annual event, but this year felt different. The organizers had added a surprise acknowledgement segment, an honor for a contributor whose service had remained unrecognized until now. Donna had received an invitation. The organizers had hoped she too had contributed to the community in some way. But Donna now felt alienated from the society she once belonged to. The scandal surrounding her boutique, the growing gossip on social media, Caleb's silence, and Howard's haunting calm. It had all slowly broken her. Still, she showed up, in a red dress, light makeup, and a practiced smile on her lips. Howard was already there. He didn't sit near the stage, but in the 3rd row, right in the center. The same calm face, dressed in a deep navy suit, staring straight ahead. Beside him sat his longtime colleague, attorney Kellen Graves, and the community paper's senior editor, Cynthia Bell. There was no excitement on their faces, only steady anticipation. The ceremony began. Names were called. Awards were handed out. Applause filled the room. But as the event progressed, the atmosphere began to shift. The host smiled and announced, "And now, we'd like to present the story of a contributor in our community. Someone whose name remained hidden, but whose quiet discipline uncovered not just his own truth, but others as well." The lights dimmed. A video began to play on the screen. The video began with a shot of the DMV office, followed by Howard's calm face, his desk, timesheets, and reports. A voiceover narrated, "Howard Anderson, a citizen who redefined the meaning of rules and ethics." Donna's eyes widened. She couldn't grasp why this was being shown. The screen changed to security footage of a wine bar. Donna and Caleb sat at a table, leaning in, smiling softly, gazing into each other's eyes. People in the audience began shifting in their seats. Next came footage of Caleb's gym, with a health department team conducting a raid and uncovering boxes of steroids. Then Donna's boutique appeared. zoning violation notices, and a newspaper clipping titled, "Small Town Boutique or Love-Funded Liability?" Donna's breath caught. She fumbled through her purse, hands trembling. The hall was enveloped in a sharp, indescribable silence. The screen displayed a final line, greater than, "Justice doesn't always shout. Sometimes it writes in silence." The host called out, "Please welcome Mr. Howard Anderson." The hall erupted in applause. Donna's makeup had melted into tears and sweat. She couldn't stand. Her legs were numb. Howard walked onto the stage. He said nothing, just stood by the microphone and read from a slip of paper. "I did nothing. I simply observed and wrote. And when the time came, I revealed everything. I didn't punish anyone. I just placed the truth where it belonged." He then looked directly into Donna's eyes. There was no anger, no triumph, only a peace that comes to someone who has found themselves after a battle. The event concluded. People approached Howard, offering praise, handshakes, pats on the back. Donna was absent. She sat outside by the gate, in the dark, beneath the streetlights, silently. She now understood. Howard, whom she had considered ordinary, was anything but. Her defeat wasn't just public, it was historic. As the gentle winter sun spread over the small Midwestern town, Howard Anderson stepped out of his old station wagon, the same one he used to drive daily to the DMV. But his days had changed. Now his mornings were guided not by the clock, but by inner peace. Officially, he was retired. In reality, he had become a writer who never raised his voice, yet shook the world with his story. His new home was a white wooden cottage by a tranquil lake outside the city, with a small boat at the back and a sign out front that read, "Welcome to the Longest Silence, a memoir in progress." That was the title of Howard's book, now ranked third on the New York Times bestseller list. But this book wasn't a sensational exposé. It named no names, leveled no direct accusations. It was filled only with emotions and silent revelations. How a man discovers his wife's infidelity but doesn't seek revenge. He responds with silence. How he confronted society with truths people always avoid. This book wasn't just one man's story. It was the story of all those who endure humiliation, betrayal, and loneliness with grace, and one day find themselves standing tall again. Howard had become a community mentor. People came to him for advice on divorce proceedings, financial independence, and most importantly, emotional stability. He was no longer a man who made noise. He had become a symbol of peace. One day, a woman arrived at his lakeside bench, around 45 years old, weary eyes, a letter in hand. It was Donna. She quietly sat beside him. Howard looked at her, smiled, and asked, "Coffee?" Donna nodded. "Yes, if you still make it." A few minutes later, both sat by the lake with coffee. Donna softly said, "I didn't come to apologize. I know that wouldn't be enough." Howard looked at her and replied, "I never asked for an apology." Donna was surprised. Then she asked, "Then how did you find this peace within?" Howard gazed at the sky, then at the ripples on the water. Peace comes when you don't respond. Just understand. And then, settle scores with life without making noise. Donna's eyes welled up. Howard quietly handed her a small envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Your name isn't in the book, but this is a royalty check. Legally, you have a right. You were part of the story." Donna was speechless. Her hands trembled. She slowly stood up, looked at Howard, and murmured, "I never truly understood you." Howard smiled and replied, "And I never defamed you." That evening, as the sun set, Howard sat by the lake with his rescue dog, Shadow. He was typing the next chapter of his book. Betraying is easy, enduring is hard, But the hardest is responding without making noise. He closed his laptop, patted Shadow's head, and said, "Let's call it a day." The end. If you appreciated Howard's silent struggle and peaceful victory, thank you for watching this video till the end. Subscribe to the channel so next time a true story like this comes along, you'll be the first to hear it. And remember, sometimes the deepest voice is silence.